I found fascinating is in the two churches I served, one coming from the London Missionary Society background, which is congregational, and the second coming from the Wesley Methodist tradition, which obviously is Methodist, alongside the hymn singing tradition, the westernized hymn singing tradition with the four-part harmony, parallel to that existed the Indian lyrics, which do not follow any form of four-part harmony that many of us are used to. These are the elaborate, almost extemporaneous, this flexible, flowing style to strict Indian musical principles that have come down literally for centuries. To see these two juxtaposed and existing side by side raises fundamental post-colonial questions. What does it mean to be post-colonial? Am I going to dismiss the Basel Mission tradition with its English and German four-part harmony, hymn-singing tradition as being hopelessly a relic of colonialism, and therefore that there is something wrong with it? In 2013 December, when I go back and see them continuing this tradition, 175 years almost later, am I going to tell those young people who are playing those brass instruments and the clarinet and the organ and the piano and the violin, am I going to tell them there's something wrong with you, you should be more post-colonial in the narrow sense and give up this dependence on westernization? And what do I do when I go to Bangalore? I see the two things juxtaposed side by side. I see the Western hymn-singing tradition existing quite comfortably with the Indian lyric, the Kirtana tradition. People switch from this to that. They begin with a hymn, they end with a hymn. In the middle, they sing Indian lyrics. How do I look at that from a post-colonial point of view? One more example. When the United Church of South India was formed in 1947, and the new liturgy, which drew from all the four traditions that I told you, became part of the liturgy, became the liturgy of the United Church of South India, given the connections that the Anglican Church had with the establishment, guess who became the official publisher of the Book of Common Worship? It wasn't a church press. It was that epitome of British colonial publishing, Oxford University Press. For whatever reason, I suspect through the Anglican involvement with the establishment, the Book of Common Worship of the Church of South India, till 10 years ago, continued to be published by Oxford University Press. And what is fascinating is, Oxford University Press did not merely hold the copyright for the English-speaking version of the Book of Common Worship. They held the copyright for every Indian language version of the Book of Common Worship. I'm holding in my hand Dakshina India Sabhe, Church of South India, Huduvada Devaradhane, Book of Common Worship, and the last line here, Oxford University Press, in my mother tongue. My prayer book in Kannada is published by the Oxford University Press. The first page is in Kannada. The second page you can clearly see in English. Oxford University Press. Oxford University Press is a department of the University of Oxford. It furthers the university's objective of excellence in research, scholarship, and education by publishing worldwide. And then a list of people. It's a registered trademark. And then they say they have been taken by permission, all rights reserved. No part of this publication. You must not circulate this book in any other binding or cover, and you must impose this. And then further down, only in India. The publisher happens to be a Muslim. Published in India at Sai Printopak, New Delhi, and published by Manzar Khan, Oxford University Press. Well, 10 years ago, or 15 years ago, the process of revision of this started, the Book of Common Prayer. And there were several questions raised. One, by this time, the prayer book, whether in English or Kannada or Telugu or Malayalam or Tamil or Hindi, had become part of the Church of South India. But what was lacking is a distinctive Indian touch to the liturgy. That was an ongoing debate. Is it just in the symbols? Is it in the way you stand or sit? Is it in putting on your shoes or taking them off? Is it perhaps in the kind of prayers that are written, the references that are made? How can you be faithful to the long traditions of the church into which you have come, into which you have received an inheritance, and at the same time make it intentionally local and contextual? How did the ELW, the Evangelical Lutheran Worship, wrestle with this problem? They wrestled with it by offering 10 settings. And even though the word is not used in the ELW, several of us know, oh, setting so and so, that's the Hispanic setting. And setting so and so, that's the African American setting. Oh, setting 1 is the old, whatever it is, Lutheran Church in America. Setting 3, oh, that probably comes from the Lutheran Church the American Lutheran Church. There are histories to the 10 settings. And ultimately, in this seminary, in one sense, we are spoilt for choice, because in one academic year, we do not just the 10 settings of the ELW, we also have the Book of Common Worship, the prayers from the Presbyterian Church, the United Methodist Hymnal, the Liturgy of the Church of South India, everything. But then when I talk to alumni and when I talk to friends who go into churches, what generally happens in many churches is that one setting becomes dominant and becomes the setting of a particular church. There are churches which are more flexible, but generally within the 10 settings, one becomes dominant. Well, what was recognized was that the liturgy of the Church of South India had become the lived reality of the churches, but there was a desire to contextualize this, and a revision committee was set in place. The revision committee worked hard on this, and we now have what is called the Church of South India Book of Common Worship, and I'll tell you why it has that title. We have the Lord's Supper, we have the morning and evening prayers, baptism, confirmation, reception of members from other churches, holy matrimony, burial, ordinal, covenant service, a common Eucharistic liturgy, then we have the lectionary. We discovered that this contract with Oxford University Press was for all eternity. So we didn't, from a post-colonial point of view, from the point of view that the new prayer book incorporated distinctive Indian symbolism, topical issues and brought in liturgical elements from the great Indian traditions, it would be odd to continue to publish that from Oxford University Press. The then General Secretary of the Church of South India and now the moderator of the Church of South India solved the problem very simply. It solved the problem in a very simple manner. What he did was, that's the Book of Common Worship, published by Oxford University Press. Let it continue to be published. This is a new book. It's called the Church of South India Book of Common Worship. It's a Church of South India publication. That's it. This has now gradually started permeating the churches. It's being translated, has been translated into Kannada, Tamil, Telugu, Malayalam, and I suppose Hindi, and it will develop a life of its own. Of course, there are people who are emotionally attached to the Oxford University Press publication, and Oxford University Press still makes quite a lot of money from those books, I know. But then here is something that comes from our own self-understanding of what it means to be a church. Now, from these examples, several questions arise when we talk about liturgy from a post-colonial point of view. Does a post-colonial attitude to liturgy mean that traditions that have come from the past are somehow suspect and should therefore be eliminated? That's the first question. Just because something came from a German background or an English background, does it mean that there's something wrong with it? There are people who have come to India and laughed at us. There was a missionary who came as a young man and went to the churches of the old Basel mission and literally laughed out loud. For a long time I thought LOL was lots of love, till I learned it was laughed out loud. He LOL. And why did he LOL? That was because he said, you guys are singing Western 4-part harmony. You're singing so slowly. You drag all the hymns. Why are you Indians doing that? Well, did we ask them to give it to us? Once they gave it, we took it and made it our own. And we'll sing it the way we want to sing it, whether it's as fast as it's supposed to be sung or slow enough to suit our voices. Because in India, we have all the time in the world. 1 hour service, what do you mean? 1 hour the service is just beginning. The longer you sing the hymn, the better it is for us. So, this lesson was brought home to me in a very dramatic manner at the seminary. The equivalent of the Thursday preaching in this seminary, which is the time when our senior students deliver a sermon and lead the worship service, back in Bangalore at the United Theological College, is the Monday morning worship and liturgy and preaching service led by an outgoing senior.